Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of What's the RBT? We're the AzABA interns. We're excited to come and bring you another episode and just kind of share our thoughts on some research and some questions that we found on Reddit. One thing that we're adding in this episode that wasn't in our first one is we are starting to practice for the changes in the RBT credentialing process starting next year, where RBTs will need to collect CEUs in order to maintain their credential on a 2-year cycle, which is really exciting. I know we're all excited about it. But for RBTs who haven't participated in CEUs that are podcast or video oriented, a lot of times the way they verify that you've seen the whole thing through is they provide code words. So we're going to be practicing that today. We have no CEUs to give you, so I don't want to string you along, but Josh has some code words he'll throw out at us a little bit through. Just so practice collecting it, writing it down, and we're gonna move through this. I'm
All right.
excited. You guys all doing good today?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do this.
been a long day, but we're ready to get to it.
Yes, we
Ready to
are
spill the tea.
not
Right.
morning people in
Disability.
this group. Okay. We had kind of a cool article that we kind of want to talk about too. The article is titled Registered Behavior Technicians Training Experiences for Severe Problem Behavior, a survey by Ralston and Brown. It was published in Behavior Analysis in Practice in 2023. Um, and it's actually really cool. They conducted this survey. They sent it out to 142 RBTs. They also seemed to like Reddit and went to Reddit to kind of put this out there and Facebook and other social media things. And kind of their goal was to just get the vibes on, problem behaviors and RBT training experience. We all kind of read over before we came to this meeting, but Lizzie, Naomi, Josh, you guys have any thoughts? Anything that really stood out to you from the article when you were looking over it?
Yeah, I think one of the there's a lot of numbers, and I don't want to throw a bunch of numbers out right now, but 29% of the ones that responded had no ongoing training, and they were on severe cases, and then 13% of people on severe cases didn't have any initial training. So I think that this study just highlighted there is a need. We don't know how big this need is because it's such a small sample compared to how many RBTs there are, but I've never been on a severe case that I didn't feel prepared for, and so I think that's an issue that RBTs need to self-advocate, and their supervisors should be aware of the type of training and ethics codes, and this also falls under the RBT ethics codes to advocate for training. I have a couple ethics codes that I wrote down from the RBT code, but. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that so far? No initial training, no
I
ongoing training for
have to
the
throw out the statistic. You kind of talked about it,
yeah.
but they surveyed 142 RBTs, and they said at the end that at the time of the publishing, there was 123,960 RBTs like who were certified with the BACB. And so represented in the study was 0.11% of RBTs.
A pretty small
So
size, right?
it was a very, very small sample size compared to the total of RBTs. Um, so it's a really good consideration for this. Josh, Naomi, do you guys have any other thoughts?
No,
Well,
no,
go
go for now.
ahead.
No,
I was going to speak from experience because my very first introduction to ABA as an RBT was a similar situation. And I got lucky because I had a phenomenal BCBA who was very hands-on and always ready and present with me and walked me through everything. So I don't think a lot of RBTs get that they really don't get as lucky as I do. I think it could be quite a, to be honest, a rude awakening into ABA, and did hear a lot of people from the field, unfortunately.
yeah, no, definitely. When me reading the article itself, I was just thinking about my experiences, and luckily I haven't had any cases that were like too severe that I had to work with, but I could only imagine what what kind of training would be really required for like RBTs to be able to like handle those really severe cases. So, and I just feel like as far as like training, I mean, training's one thing. It's like, but like sometimes a lot of the learning that we do as RBTs is like in the field itself, like in the like the actual field itself. So, it's I don't know. I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes you feel like you're able to handle it sometimes, but definitely like if you feel like you're really uncomfortable with the case or you really don't feel like you have the proper training for it, definitely try advocate to like your BC to your BCBAs to try to get more training in a particular case if it's more severe.
I will admit that I think this depends on the organization you work at too. I think it's going to be a really good
Hmm.
indicator for RBTs, like how the organization behaves and how they train their BCBAs to do this. I um, was at an organization. Did I ever tell you guys I had my nose broken in a session when I was in RBT? Did I tell you
Oh,
that?
definitely.
Ooh.
So I am a statistic. In here, it says, gosh, what did I say? 12% of RBTs like end up going to the hospital that were surveyed. 12% end up going. I am of the 12%. I refer to it as my nose job. Um, but like what what used to happen is there was this kid with I mean, you have a behavior plan. There was some intense behaviors. Um, and I don't think I ever saw a BIP for this case at any point at this organization. Yeah, and they used to send new RBTs or new BTs. They weren't even RBTs yet. They used to send them to come see these sessions. I don't know if it was like a way to like weed people out early on, but like they would intentionally try to find kids who were highly behavioral to like I know we said, hey, it might scare people from the field. I think they were doing it on purpose. I think they were trying to weed out people who wouldn't last early on. Um,
That's a
like
little
I re
discouraging. I mean, I don't know.
I yeah, I mean I remember one time I had a BT come with me and like this was a lot of years ago and they said this guy's gonna shadow you, kind of show him the ropes and I was like, okay, there's no BCBA here. I don't know what I'm training him on. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna train you on data collection. Here you go. Hit plus every time he hits me. And that was the session that night for like 3 hours. Um,
Interesting.
so like these are real things. But then like organization I went to after that, I always got training on the BIP. Now, like they said, PI checks may not be as regular. Sometimes you're so focused on skill acquisition that you just kind of trust the BTs to maintain it. So you check every like couple months or so, right? But
So you're right. So with your experience, Ryan, I like leads me to think it's like should the BACB like try to implement like try to like design like severe train like severe like cases training for these companies because it feels like yeah like I said it's kind of like organization from organization but I feel like if you had like a an overarching like universal like plan for these kind of behaviors I think you I mean I think the numbers would be I mean significantly better as far as like retention of BTs.
and well, I guess just to clarify your question, when you say a unifying plan, is that for just addressing behaviors or like training
I guess it's
staff on behaviors?
I guess it's more so training on behaviors itself. I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, there's like it's probably hard to like create like a universal like plan because there's so many like behaviors that we observe as as BTs and like in this field. So I don't know. It just feels like in cases of like of severe like of severe needs of student not students but clients. It just feels like there just needs to be some kind of plan in place.
You
Yeah,
mean in terms of a safety plan, in
Yeah.
case it hits the fan?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I had um previously I had a BT shadow me and that exactly happened. You know, it hit the fan, it escalated very quickly to the point where it was unsafe for everybody. And to be honest, my recommendation was for that BT to leave for their safety and for that client's safety. Everybody needed to get some space out of there. And I think that was the best call I've made, but it didn't go very well in the later down the road, but I'll never regret telling him, like, if your safety's on the line here, kiddo safety's on the line, walk out the door.
That's fair.
yeah, I think the difficulty and maybe the idea you're talking about, Josh, of like universal approaches is just everything's so individualized,
Right.
and with
Hmm.
behaviors, you have to do a functional approach, right?
Right.
This article talks gives a couple suggestions as far as what's evidence-based. BCBAs have some ethics codes related to providing like evidence-based practices that includes supervising and training technicians and staff. And so like behavior skills training is really good using PI checks. And while I'm not sure I've read any recently, there are probably, or maybe there should be, if it hasn't been done, maybe like what are the best intervals to doing PI checks for, implementation of BIPs. I mean, that would be the thing to look at is like what's the most effective interval for that, for maintenance of those skills too for technicians.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to consider is that technicians need different amounts of training too. So not only is the client plan individualized, but then technicians have individual training needs. Did you guys see the feedback section in here about written versus mixed and verbal feedback? I
Yeah.
was
I was just gonna say, like just having like that survey with each RBT, like your supervisor should be doing that. I've never seen a supervisor do that. It's more like they do it and expect you to speak up, but like I don't know, it's like I would want my supervisor, like when I'm in a supervisor position, to be like, hey, like I'm giving you textual feedback, but like, do you want me to do it differently? Or like, are you receiving it well? Like, because
Mhm,
if they're not changing their behavior, then it's not reinforcing their behavior. We know that. So it's like you have to
mhm,
use ABA on your coworkers, which is, it's cool, but it works. And it's like, a more compassionate way to like work with other people besides your clients. It's like, how do you work with others in a way that training is effective and helping the client? Because burnout's also talked about in this article.
mhm. Are you guys written feedback people? Are you verbal feedback people? What kind
I'm
of people are we talking with right now?
I'm definitely verbal. I don't know. I feel like I get feedback better when it's like spoken to me than written
Okay.
because I can kind of tell like the tone and like the vibes of the whole conversation. So I definitely verbal.
Okay.
Yeah, to add on to that, I'm also a verbal kind of gal and obviously immediate, but
Okay.
I feel like written can sometimes get misconstrued, similar to a text message, right? You read it and you're not fully understanding, like you said, Josh, the tone or maybe what the message is trying to say. So I think verbal is definitely better for me personally in terms of understanding what exactly is being said to me.
Has there been research on that, Naomi? Like technologically accurate feedback versus like untechnologically accurate feedback for technicians? Anyway, so it
Mm,
doesn't get misconstrued. Maybe there's something there. Sorry, Lizzie. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, I'm gonna be the odd one out. I like textual because I forget things. But my supervisor, my main one, she does a really good job of telling me like things that we talked about, and like feedback isn't just what I did wrong, it's just the questions that I had, and just she'll even like, things that we've already had feedback on. She'll say, "Oh, this time RBT, she she did, EID was effective. That was something I gave her feedback on last week." And then she puts it in again and says, "Oh, she did it this week." And I'm like, "Cool, okay." So it's like feedback isn't always negative. It's just, I don't know. I think it's good, like as a supervisor, to include like everything, and then maybe asking for that if you're not getting that as an RBT, like, oh, like, can you check up on this? Or like, hey, I know we talked about this in session. Like, can you send me that in a note? Just so you remember everything. There's so much happening, and like I work in school settings a lot, and I there's too much going on for me to like remember every verbal feedback that I got. But it is nice to get some verbal feedback rather than just feeling like you're being like watched and
Oh
someone's
yeah.
secretly writing about you and like
Hmm.
Yeah, advocate for your needs as an RBT. And that's a little shameless plug to AzABA conference.
Hmm.
yeah. I had some ethics codes that were brought to my brain that I wrote down based on this article. If you guys wanted to
Let's
talk in.
do it.
Sure,
Yeah, let's
sure.
hear
Yeah.
some ethics codes.
I
Yes.
know, like let's make this behavior analytic. What dimension is that? Yeah. Um, there was let's see. So yeah, I guess the RBT ethics code, which I feel like when I don't know, I don't really read it that much. I don't know about you guys. It's like maybe something we should be reviewing monthly, even though, it's like, oh yeah, ethics, duh.
Great
Um,
stuff in there. That's for
there
sure.
really is. But yeah, one of the first ones that caught my eye was let's see, 1.06, RBTs provide behavior technician services only after their supervisor confirms they have demonstrated competence. They work with their supervisor to continually evaluate their competence. If an RBT identifies that they are being asked to do something that goes beyond the scope of their certification and or competence, they immediately inform their supervisor or other appropriate individuals at their place of employment and document the communication. That felt really accurate to like the training issue here, with severe behavior cases or just in general, like it's falls on your ethics code as an RBT to like say something. Yeah.
Okay, so scenario time. I'm an RBT. I just got put onto a case. They told me like the kid pulls hair, throws glass, like will like is really aggressive, right? And I've never been on a physically aggressive case before. I've had no training. What, based off what you're talking about, what do you recommend I do? How do I approach that as a
Yeah.
certificate holding RBT?
I think you identify that it's out of your scope and that you need training and you need to demonstrate competence. And that might be like a role play or whatever you need to for your supervisor to feel that you're competent, but also you. Um, and then, yeah, I think at any point it could become out of your scope. Behaviors change topography all the time. So, these kids are very creative. So, like I've never
Hmm.
worked with like eye gouging or like those kind of behaviors like choking or anything. But I think if I, yeah, like I've worked with everything else aggression wise, but if I had saw that, like I'm like, this is new, I need more training, and then
Hmm.
document that you asked for it because if they don't provide it, then I'm sure that yeah, BCBAs they also have their own ethics code. But as far as an RBT, you should be advocating for that repeatedly. Any
That
other?
gives me a lot of direction as a new RBT. Thank you.
Yes.
The documenting part, I think, is especially helpful. It gives you that paper trail.
Right.
So
Huge.
important. 7 years though, you got to keep everything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But for good reason though,
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. And like, if there is a court case down the line against your company, if that could you could help other people. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that was one of them. If you guys don't have any other thoughts on that, there is also 2.03 and 2.04 of the RBT ethics code. 2.04 is similar. RBTs do not use unfamiliar interventions or provide services to unfamiliar client populations unless they have received proper training. It's kind of repeating that same thing, but and then 2.03 is RBTs conduct themselves in a professional manner during all work activities. They take action to improve their performance following feedback. Um, yeah, I think those
yeah,
are very applicable to this whole article and statistic wise that, there's something with the ethics code that's not, being implemented or looked at enough.
All
definitely.
right. I think the big takeaway, I think it should be if you are uncomfortable implementing severe problem behavior interventions and you need more training, go get it.
Yeah.
Document, go ask for it.
Hmm. And then
Yeah.
also like, the burnout aspect of telling your supervisor, like, hey, I heard about this thing called burnout. If you haven't heard about it, go do that because it was
This
60
happens.
something, I think it was 67% didn't have, yeah, didn't discuss burnout effects with the supervisor of these 142 app or respondents. So
Crap.
67 is a high number because burnout is,
Burnout real. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
that number's a little too high, a little too high for not saying anything. You know what I mean? I mean, we all feel burnt out. Doesn't matter if you're working like in at an office or you're working in like a clinical setting. It's like we all experience it. So like once you recognize the signs of it, it's very important to just speak out and you say, "Hey, I just need some time away from it, or I need a break for a little bit." Because you can't do your best work if you're not your best self. That's the way I see it in this field, especially. So
Retweet.
there we go.
yeah,
I
I
think
know I
I think
work with
that's a
a,
code too.
yeah.
Making sure you're in a good spot to provide services. You're aware of your own biases and challenges. Oh, I found it. 1.09. There it is.
Yeah.
Be aware. You might affect your ability to implement services.
Yeah. I work with a client who very severe behavior is always in like gear most of the time. But everyone on her case, no one works with her more than twice a week. I think 3 times a week is the max, but like it's very never like a long session or they're aware that there's burnout and so the company like
Hmm.
accommodates that because it's such a severe case compared to the other kiddos that don't engage in like SIB and aggression and things like that. But yeah, good stuff. That was a good little combo about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fired
feeling
up.
good stuff. I'm thinking we segue into our what's going on with Reddit section. Before we do, Josh, you got a code word for us?
Yes, I do. The first code word we have today is passport. That's passport.
Passport.
Passport. Passport.
All right, and we're taking you on a trip through
All right.
ethics. So have your passports ready.
There we go.
Okay. All right, let's go see what Reddit's cooking. We found a couple of topics. This one was titled A Bit of a Crisis of Ethics. Um, I am not going to kind of go into the whole thing. Those of you that are watching video, will put it up on the screen for a minute. Um, but more or less, one highlights over the last week, I've been doing a lot of falling down rabbit holes, seeing things about ABA online and how they've been working with families who want to fix their children, fixing stimming, and they've communicated that it could potentially be harmful. They're from a different country where their cultures value different things. And so they're like, how do I juggle all of this? So what do you guys think? Did I sum that up enough? Was there any points I missed in that sum up?
So it seems like, this person has been like falling under the guise of ABA. So it's like people trying to impersonate the practice itself. I don't know if that means it's like I don't know if that means like there's no BCBA present or if they're like not following protocol, but like there's definitely some issues of like ethical like dilemmas here. Whoever made the post should definitely try to reach out to the governing board BACB and see if they can figure out like how we can address situation. You know what I mean? Because it'd be one because we're working under medical model, and you don't want to like fool people into thinking that like you're providing this service, doing trying to help, but that's like it's not really working, or they're doing the wrong technique. So yeah, it's a big one. I don't know.
The bit that stuck out to me in that section was the fix my child
Yeah.
phrase. And that made me wonder if the BCBA shared what this service is going to look like, what expectations are for the family for the RBT or BT and BCBA. It just seems like there's not enough educating in that sense.
Yeah, I think like as an RBT, like going in and I've had a parent say to me like, "Oh, I don't like, I don't want you to change my child," or like, almost like, they have autism, but that's not all of it and like, not like making them mask everything. It's like kind of the opposite of some parents are like, "I need you to make sure my kid doesn't look like he has autism," or things like that or whatever the disability is. So it's like trying to find socially significant behaviors that and like kind of like teaching our science to people in a way that's like, we're not fixing anybody by any means. We're just addressing interfering behaviors to make their life better. But I think it's the language that's hard when you talk to parents because there's so much emotion and like parents will go, down that rabbit hole with you, like, what exactly are you doing? And you're like on the spot, like, oh, like, not gonna interfere with all of the stimming, but it's hard to explain like why we don't do that, I think, to some families, and it's so tricky to navigate and always redirect you
Hmm.
to CBA, but I
Mhm.
don't know.
I think there's a big movement in the field to being culturally responsive to, and at the same time trying to remove stimming. And I, when we're looking for like socially significant behaviors, I guess there, and I'm just thinking of maybe potentially some exceptions, right? Like what, I don't know what the family's like culture is. I don't know what's going on, but like, let's say these stimming behaviors are like gonna keep them from interacting with like their culture or their community, right? Like, would it be better to decrease the stimming behaviors or to, you know, not address them and then have them not being able to interact with like their community, right? And I'm not sure there necessarily is a right answer there necessarily. I think that's why you discuss it with the family. I think you do your risk benefit analyses. You try to determine like what's going to bring the most good to the client. Um, because like I mean, even for stimming, you could teach that there's a time and place. You don't get rid of it entirely. It's like, hey, if you need to stim, like I'm gonna teach you to maybe go step out of the room for a minute, like go regulate yourself, right? And maybe that's, I mean, if it's a highly stimulating environment, you need to go stim. Like that makes sense anyway. It makes sense to go step out of the room. So I mean, you can teach appropriate ways to do stim or find sensory parallel type stimming that accomplish the same thing that might be more acceptable or appropriate to the family. Um, I think what's really striking to me about this, and I think one of you guys had mentioned, is like I'm not really sure where the BCBA was in these conversations. I'm seeing like an RBT who's kind of out dealing with families and implementing programs and having to bear the brunt of some of these hard conversations with families. And I'll be honest, like it really shouldn't be on the RBT to have to teach and explain this to the family. RBTs really do not need to do any parent training unless like they're instructed by the BCBA and trained to do
Right.
so. They don't need to have these conversations. If you're an RBT and the parent's talking to you about this and saying, "Hey, we got to fix it," you'd be like, "Hey, bring it up with the BCBA. Like, go talk to
Yeah.
them about this. This BT was put in kind of a cruddy situation, having to facilitate all this."
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I know for me sometimes like I have to have those tough conversations with like families about like progress with like with programs and things that are going on in their session. And so I always feel like I always feel like it's like okay, well I'm the one running the programs, but it's like for me like that's like really outside of my scope of practice. Anything as far as like anything above like what I know as far as like in my scope I can do. Everything else goes to the BCBA. And like if like and if they can't answer that at that point, it's like okay, maybe there's something that needs to be addressed with maybe like like a clinical director or someone on that level, right? We're a lot more we're a lot of the times responsible for like implementation of programs and things like that, but like anything above that, I don't know. It just seems like yeah, you need that for sure need to reach out to the BCBA for those kind of issues. And one thing that also kind of stood out with me in the article as well is that word fix. I don't know. It's I don't know. Just working in this field that word sometimes just kind of just rubs,
Hmm.
rubs me the wrong way. It's like we're not really trying to fix a person, quote unquote. I mean, the way I see it is that we're just trying to like teach them skills that are going to help benefit them for the rest of like for the rest of their lives. You
Yeah,
know,
teach them more autonomy.
right?
I have
I
a couple of,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a couple of ethics codes, but we could save that towards the end of this
You know what?
discussion.
That's where I was going. I was going to the
Woo!
ethics code. I have
I
just
like
one
where your
really
head's
quick
at.
one, and then I'm gonna let you take it, okay? This is in the introduction. I'm picturing like if I'm an RBT
Mm.
here and I'm wondering how do I, like Josh said, like deal with this? How do I like express these concerns that maybe I don't think this is being handled ethically or the right way? In the introduction of the RBT ethics codes, it says it outlines the process. It's up there. You don't even get to the codes yet. It's up in the intro. It says, in the event of a suspected ethics violation, RBTs attempt to resolve the issue by first bringing it to the attention of their supervisor while documenting all actions taken to address the ethics violation. So you list of the actions you've taken, the dates you did it, who was involved, who did you communicate with, and a description of like what the outcome was from that. And save all of the relevant documentation. And if that matter cannot be resolved directly, the RBTs report it to the appropriate authority. It could be a supervisor, could be their employer, could be the licensure board. Some it could be law enforcement. And then if the matter involves violation of RBT ethics code or the ethics code for behavior analysts and is not resolved with support of their supervisors, then the RBTs report the matter to the BACB. So there's a process there. You can find it on there. You're like, hey man, this stimming thing, I'm not feeling comfortable doing this. Go to your supervisor, try to resolve it directly and document so you have it. Okay, that's
Well,
my
that just,
spiel. What else you got, Naomi?
I was going to say that goes to show that not a lot of folks are reading through the ethics code. It's not long. But anyways, So I noted down 1.07 RBTs work directly with their supervisor to ensure they are culturally responsive in their work.
Mhm.
1.08 RBTs do not harass or discriminate against others, including natural origin, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc. I'm not going to read through all of those. And 2.04 RBTs do not use unfamiliar interventions or provide services to unfamiliar client populations unless they've received proper training.
And
Is
the parent,
2.04 our code of the day?
what?
It's
I
popping
think
up
it
multiple
is.
times. Is that going to be a thing? We'll see.
That's our
Anyway,
theme.
that's our theme, our code of the day, 2.04.
I have a question with client populations. Could that also be parents or like kind of like, I mean, they're more like stakeholders, I guess, but like, you're not giving them parent training. So like if they ask like, about
Hmm.
why you're doing something and you don't have the training to train them on what you're doing, I guess. I don't know. That
Then
would
yeah,
fall.
you don't have the training. Like it's not within your scope, right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
maybe that's a question you could have with the BCB is like, how can you help train me to like explain what I'm doing a little bit more or the why? You could get down into the rabbit hole of that. Yeah. Okay. I think we've got one more uh Reddit post we'll go through, but Josh, you got another code word for us?
All right. This code word now is pepper. Pepper. A lot of P words today. So pepper is a second code word.
Any of you guys watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Anybody remember that
Yeah.
show? Okay.
Yeah.
That was the name of the dog, right? I feel like I just watched through that and it was Pepper.
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. All right, next Reddit post. It is ethical? Question mark. I work in a clinic and came by a situation that had me pretty concerned, to say the least. As a result, for whining or client saying this is boring, BCBA had client walk up and down a flight of stairs several times. When client further complained, obviously in quotation or in parentheses, then had client run up and down the stairs, to which the client began crying. Several other extremely questionable situations had taken place prior to this with this BCBA. I feel a strong urge to report this, but would like some further input and insight on how to go about this.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem like I don't know. That doesn't seem very ethical and doesn't even sound very fun either, or even like productive. I don't know. If I mean if the client's just stating that something is boring, then that's probably a cue for the for the technician and the team to try to find some different like interventions to do. But like that doesn't necessitate the running up and down stairs because what is that promoting and what is that reinforcing? Really seems like a punishment almost.
It is absolutely a punishment procedure. Absolutely.
I don't think we have enough context in this. What procedure are they doing? Are they doing a punishment procedure? But legally in Arizona, exercise is not considered abuse unless it is to the point of injury. So I think it would also come down to what are your state laws too behind that. But again, do parents know about what's going on? Does the BCBA know what's happening? Is the BT just going rogue here?
Mhm,
Like I said, we need a little more information.
mhm. I will say punishment procedures are kind of like a last resort and can be approved under
Hmm.
like oversight committees. So if you've exhausted all your reinforcement strategies and maybe that's the point they got to with this. I would definitely like more context, like Naomi said. Like, I wonder if it really was just for saying this is boring. That seems a bit extreme to then like demand exercise. Um, but maybe they've gone through a reinforcement procedures and they were trying to decrease something, and then maybe this exercise thing is legal in the States and could potentially have been approved by a board. I think that goes back to like those risk benefit analysis. Maybe whatever behavior they were trying to decrease that I'm not seeing in this written scenario, it might have been warranted that it was less risk to the client to have them do exercise versus whatever this behavior is. Um, Definitely some questions.
Yeah. Maybe I spoke too
Based,
soon my initial reaction to it, but it just sounded like that. I mean, it just didn't sound like a fun time at a session to be walking up and down the stairs multiple times. So,
Yeah, it's I think that's the fun thing about Reddit is you write it to try to persuade people to your opinion. And so I this is swayed one direction. But before we come down with like the sword of justice on this BCBA, like it probably want more information.
I'm reading the comments and people are saying just go right to CPS, report abuse. And I mean, we are mandated reporters and like it just, we don't
Hmm.
have enough information if that really is abuse. But
Hmm.
I, I would think you'd need to do two reports. If, say hypothetically, like this was abuse, you'd need to report the BCBA to the BACB and then maybe, would you report to DPS, the protective services? Like that's kind of.
I if I mean you could report to like authorities if you are actually breaking a law, like if it is abuse in that state, then like yes, like you could go to authorities for that. Um,
Yeah. I guess
because
would you
they
do
could press
both? And
charges.
yeah, like so the BCBA can't practice at that point? Would you or would I don't know if law enforcement
I
would
think
do
if we defer
that.
to the RBT ethics code again, it gives us the process. So we try to rectify it with
Mhm.
supervisors first and document it. And then if things are not addressed, um, then you report it to the appropriate authority, which could be an employer, could be a licensure board or law enforcement. So, granted, like I guess if you saw like a BCBA like murder somebody, you probably would just call law enforcement right away too, right? So I guess there is
oh,
some
right.
instances where you might not address it directly. I don't think if you saw that, you'd go, hey, it wasn't really cool that you murdered that guy. So we should probably work on not doing that in the future. You just call the cops and you probably avoid them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely
Yeah.
depends on severity, I guess, if you're
For
gonna
sure.
do that.
I also wonder if exercise is aversive in this case too, because like personally for me, it's not. If someone told me to go run up and down the stairs, I would be like, awesome, thank you for reinforcing me. I will keep running them. So
See,
yeah,
cardio's
again,
a swear word
context.
in my household. We can do some weightlifting, but if you tell me to hop on a stair climber, I'm gonna mutter some mean things under my breath. And it's gonna be maybe a little worse than this is boring. Okay. Well, I guess if nobody has anything else, we'll kind of wrap it up here. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode of What's the RBT? We will be bringing another episode to you soon, and like and subscribe, share this episode, tell your friends, share it with your mom, and we'll see you next time.
See ya,
Yeah, thank you for listening.
guys.